Well, joining us today is Alex Booth, Head of Research at Kpler. Alex, thank you very much for joining us. Firstly, I want to ask you, the potential threat to Russia of more sanctions over these alleged war crimes, is it having an impact, or are they just turning to Asian markets like China?
Well, ultimately, we saw exports through the entirety of March only down very slightly, about 50,000 barrels a day versus the full month of February. And what we've seen is, yes, a significant reduction in exports pointing towards us here in OECD Europe, down just under 600,000 barrels a day. But that's basically been made up by an increase heading to South Asia, ultimately India, and then also China, with a month-on-month increase in volumes bound for India of up by 300,000 barrels a day to about 370, compared to 70 for the past 3 months or so. So far, they have been able to really just shift those supplies around the world. Now, as things are developing and we're hearing more concerns or bringing up more sanctions talk, that is going to get harder. So far, it's largely been voluntary action. There's been recent development from the Baltic Exchange, for example, saying that it's going to become increasingly harder for any UK-based entities to even deal with Russian cargoes at this current standpoint.
And last week, President Biden made that unprecedented announcement to combat what he's calling, quote, Putin's price rise, releasing huge volumes from strategic reserves. Are we starting to see an impact at all from that? Because obviously, as just mentioned, prices are going up.
Yeah, any kind of release from strategic reserves is welcome, but up until now, it's by and large paid kind of lip service. It's something that the government, that certainly in the US, they have to be seen to be doing something to combat the high oil prices and ultimately the high pump prices. The million barrels a day that we're talking about is a significant volume, far beyond what we've seen before in kind of previous releases. That does make headway. But ultimately, we're still looking at Russian exports in the realm of 4.6 million barrels a day. So that 1 million barrels, it helps, but it still really doesn't go anywhere near cover what we might lose from Russia.
And turning to OPEC, they're more or less sticking to their guns when it comes to ramping up production. What are you looking out for in terms of major factors with affecting prices in the short term and the medium term?
So OPEC are fundamentally continuing what they've always done, and that's say we look at the fundamentals. So they look at the oil exports through recent months. Yes, they declined in March, but as I say, not significantly from Russia. It was actually large volumes of declines from Latin America and the Middle East that made those up. Similarly, we've seen a slowdown in draws of global crude inventories. So they're looking at these and saying, well, fundamentally, the market isn't that tight because of Russia. Obviously, the behavior of developed market nations pushing back of Russian crude, that has added a lot of risk premium. But they're looking at it and saying, well, the physical supply of oil hasn't changed that much. So I think they'll be looking to see how things develop over the coming months and see if Russia actually is sanctioned, whether they make any changes. Politically, though, it's very hard for them to do that, given that Russia is a member of OPEC+.
Alex Booth, Head of Research at Kpler, thank you very much.